Okay. Hello, everybody. The Nameless Narcissist here once again. A simple man diagnosed with NPD, giving you the facts of narcissistic personality disorder and things that go on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. But keep in mind, I am no clinician. I can only talk to my own experiences and sometimes the experiences of others, which is what's going on here today. So basically, a lot of you guys know that I am trying to advocate a lot, not only for people with narcissistic personality disorder and to get them into treatment, but also people that we affect, because that behavior can be very confusing and very just bad all around. Right. So my buddy Dimming the Gaslight, who runs a podcast, you can find that on Spotify among other social media stuff that I'll probably link if he reminds me. I'm having him on so he can tell his story and hopefully give you guys somebody to relate to and show that, we all have stuff to learn from each other in all of our healing journeys and stuff like that. So that being said, care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, what's going on, man? So my name is Mac. Like Jacob said, I do run a podcast called Dimming the Gaslight. It is available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you can listen to podcasts. And so the reason I'm here is Jacob did an episode of my podcast. You can go back and you can check it out as episodes 53 and 54 on my podcast. And because I'm on Jacob's channel right now, I just want to say that I have a curiosity when it comes to narcissism, because I have been afflicted from a narcissist, a female narcissist, over the last 10 years, who I was married to and had 2 children with. It's important because I'm on Jacob's platform. I know for your listeners, I just want to say, because of the cluster B personality, I'm fascinated with you guys. And it's important for me to say that I don't see my narcissistic ex, who I refer to as my next, as you guys. Okay. So I don't see my next in you. What I see is an opportunity for you and I to kind of bridge that gap so that you can learn from me, I can learn from you, and hopefully we can take away from this affliction that's happening to both of us.
Amen. I mean, that's what I always say, right? I mentioned this before we started recording. It's just that everybody views it as like a war between people with cluster B personality disorders and the people they affect. No, we're all just fucked up people at this point, right? We're in a very similar boat.
Yeah. Exactly.
And helping everybody in their healing is what's obvious, preventing us from hurting more people, right? And also so we don't suffer anymore, and also helping other people understand and be able to move on and grow.
Right.
It feels obvious to me a lot of times,
but it's hard because like I say, I don't see my next in you guys, but most of the people on my platform do. And shout out to, you were on my podcast. Shout out to Tess, who is Spirit Dark Narc, that was on my podcast. Dr. Ruth Harper was also on my podcast. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to learn from some of the people that, are in your circle. And I also want the people that are in my circle, my community, who, God bless all of them. We're all fighting to try and make heads or tails of what we've been through over the last weeks, months, or years. And for me, so just going into a little bit of my background, back in October of 2021, I was married to a female narcissist for the better part of 10 years. And what ultimately ended up happening is I had discovered narcissism and basically just stopped feeding into what she was making me do. And everything was super tumultuous and we were fighting all the time. And when push came to shove, ultimately, without me knowing, she got a restraining order on me and said that I had choked her while she was holding my child that was under 5 years old. Because of that restraining order, I was eliminated from my home that I owned, and I spent 42 days with no communication with my 2 children that are under the age of 10. And, it was a big, long thing. Of course, I went through horrible, horrible times. Eventually, that restraining order was settled. And then about 7 months later, she did it again. And she claimed that I had beaten the children and that I spent 60 days away from my children. So it's been a long road. And what ultimately ended up happening with me is I couldn't understand how I lived that scenario, but I was just walking the streets of the world and not being able to share this story with somebody. So I had found social media, and I had found Instagram, and I had found TikTok, and I started connecting with a whole bunch of people. And then I started this podcast, and that's how you and I connected. And I'm really grateful for what you're doing, because like with what you're doing, you know, like I will say this, and you and I talked about this offline, there's certain pages that I follow who are diagnosed self-aware narcissists. And to me, certain pages are screaming, don't give that quote unquote supply. I don't know how you guys feel about the word supply, but some people are saying, don't give your supply to your personal narcissist, give it to me. And what I see Jacob doing is saying, no, listen, like, here's what goes on in my head. Here's how my brain ticks. And I see you trying to bridge that gap. And I really admire that about you. And like I said, Tess, and I think there's certain people out there who are doing good things and fighting the right fight. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I appreciate that. And like, and honestly, I don't talk about this that much because it's kind of weird to talk about, but like a big thing, like I do watch a lot of, not a lot, but like I do watch people in your kind of spheres, because like I'm equally as confused by you motherfuckers.
Well,
y'all are weird,
here, man. Yeah, so like that's why I brought you on my podcast.
Right.
No, I'm not gonna fucking deny we are weird. Like, we think we're fucking weird. Like, why do we sit there and push our way through all these red flags that like they were there, but like to me, it's like, okay, so for me, I had kind of a rough childhood, right? And I didn't have that close-knit, you know, home family dynamic that I wanted. And I could have gone one of two ways. I could have turned kind of calloused and cold, but instead I became this sort of empathetic person who wanted that marriage and the kids and the white fence, you know, white picket fence idea. And I was willing to push myself through the things, even when I saw they were wrong, or I saw that I was being used, or I saw that I was being manipulated. And I was willing to push my way through those things to get to that ultimate goal of what I thought the idealistic fantasy of having a family was.
Right. I mean, that makes perfect, honestly, that makes perfect sense. Like, because obviously I ended up with personality disorder, so I didn't have a great childhood either. But like, it makes sense that like one of the two routes you basically go is recognizing the innate value of love when you're deprived of it, or going the other way and being like, well, I didn't fucking need it anyway. Right.
Right. And like, you know what there's all these, like old adages, right? Like happy wife, happy life, or, love is pain, and like that kind of shit. That like, that's the kind of mentality that kept me sick for so long, because I thought like, it's hard. Like, relationships are supposed to be hard, right? But like, so like when things would go wrong, I would sit there and I would say, well, she does really love me. And, she would, with all the things that she's saying, the victim complex that she has, and she's turning it against me, she would have left me a long time ago. So she really must love me, and we're willing to stick this out. But like, there's just nothing healthy about it. There's nothing healthy about that dynamic.
It's so funny how you see like how your family dynamics as a child impacted what you thought a healthy relationship looked like nowadays.
Totally. Yeah. And it's funny, like, now having been out of that abuse, well, out of the relationship, but I'm still dealing with some of the bullshit. But I see now, like, and I've said this, I compare it to like an old job. Like when you have a job that you're in a job and you're like, this is not the way the real world works. Like, this is not the way the real world works. And I think the grass is greener on the side you water it. And now, like in my personal relationships now, things are not, they could never be as hard as that was. That there was no winning. There was no pleasing her. And
that must be, is that like fucking whiplash that you got now, being in like a relationship with like a non-disordered person?
Whiplash? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's whiplash because, so an example from my story that I tell on the podcast is like, we would be calling each other assholes and pieces of shit, at like 9 a.m. and about like 4 a.m. she'd be like, hey, where do you want to take the kids on vacation for Christmas? And it's like, we hate each other. What? Like, I don't even know how to entertain this idea. Like, what do you mean?
And then meanwhile, like on my side of things that happens, I'm like, why are you bringing up the past? God, it's over.
Oh, you just made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I know. So something that Jacob and I were talking about before we got on that I just wanted to address is, usually my podcast is just audio only. I'm not showing my face because I'm still in the middle of a custody battle. I'm still in the middle of a trial for domestic abuse, which something I didn't touch on, but I have a wealth of video, audio, picture, text message evidence to sink my next. I just haven't gotten, the courts are so backed up that I haven't gotten the opportunity to present it. But one of the things that I do on my podcast is I also bring in my lawyer, so that my own personal lawyer, who I found through Instagram, and we've connected and she loves my platform, I bring my lawyer on so that she can kind of vouch for me and say like, no, this guy's got it. Like, there's no gimmick here. There's nothing, I'm not looking for any fame or attention. All I'm trying to do is help the people who are, I just, a lot of times I think back to the times when it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm staring at the ceiling and her back is to me and she's sound asleep and I'm staring at the ceiling just going like, how did I get mixed up in this? And how is she so calm? And how is she so detached? And like, I can't sleep and she's sleeping soundly, and like, why? And it's really because, well, I don't want to say she didn't care. I mean, you could probably say that she cared, but she didn't know how to show me love. And I learned that from you, by the way. I learned that from your episodes with me.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. Okay. And I feel like I'm curious. Like, this is something that I kind of wonder sometimes, because a lot of people kind of do believe that like their ex who was narcissistic never really loved them. Is it more or less comforting to know that they probably did care, but in a way that they weren't able to show it to you?
More or less comforting. I would probably say it's more comforting to know that she didn't love me, because then my brain starts going on this like mouse wheel of going, well, if she loved me, why couldn't she show it? And she could have just done this, or she could have just done this. But if she didn't love me, I can at least understand why you would use somebody. I could understand why you would use, because she used me for marriage and kids and a house and financial gain and kind of like this social media status of like, look how desirable I am. Right. I mean, I cracked the joke. It's funny. I have a listener on my platform. And so I was, I'm sure you get it too. I get a lot of those accounts on Instagram who post to my page and it's like, promote it on whatever. Or they say like, oh, this hacker will help you hack your Nexus phone.
Well, I see that shit. That's so weird.
I block so many of those people, but
I know.
It's crazy. But I went back and I looked at all the people that I blocked, which are hundreds of people, but I stumbled across my Nex. And where I'm going with this story is I saw that my Nex has 5,000 pictures on her Instagram. Okay. And 5,000 pictures. I'm looking at you on the screen right now. Your eyes just got big, right?
Insane. Like, my
God.
God.
Attention. She probably only has, I mean, if she had 1,000 followers, I would be shocked. She's blocked and I'm not going to unblock her to see how many followers she has. But my point is that she had to put on a play of how, look at my life. Look at what I have. I have a house, I have kids, I have a marriage, I have a husband that loves me, all this kind of stuff. And, it's funny, I play this game with a couple of my listeners and I say like, okay, who has more social media posts, Kim Kardashian or my Nex, or Dua Lipa or my Nex? Like, who has more social media posts? Because she was just thriving on attention and social status and money and, just trying to feed her own ego.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to shore up that fucking self-esteem with like
self-esteem juice, right?
The cover is more important than the context for us half the time.
1,000%. And I see that and I get that. And you've articulated that really well to me. And like, so to me, to answer your question, I would rather know that she didn't love me, because if she did, my mind would be spinning like, well, it almost maybe want me to get back with her and be like, maybe this time she can show me love. And, I've avoided the Hoover as my community likes to call it. I've avoided the Hoover post separation, but I was hoovered many times within the relationship.
See, that's interesting to me, because I do get that every now and then of like people asking me like, oh, don't you think like the content you're making is going to want to make people go back to their abusive ex? And I'm like, I'm not talking about abuse is the thing. It's like, if your narcissistic ex was abusive, that's a whole separate conversation to be having. I'm just telling the truth about what I experienced.
Right.
Right. And it's like, but I do get that kind of like, I do get the danger of humanizing. That sounds weird to say, but that like a lot of people can kind of try to that like attempt to like, because the thing is, when people go through these breakups, usually they don't want breakup to happen. They still love that person and they're looking for any excuse that they can in order to get back into those relationships. And that's kind of how I view it, is that if you're using my content as a reason to get back into that relationship, you're going to find some other fucking reason. You know what I mean?
Sure. But in my brain, as you said that, I think, you know, if you're taking the standpoint as somebody with a personality disorder, and I'm taking the standpoint as somebody who's, you know, a victim or an empath or whatever we want to call ourselves, our motives are different. You know what I mean? Like for getting back into a relationship, our motives are different. So your motive might be, you know, because it would be, you know, detrimental to your ego if somebody leaves you. And our motive might be that we did really want this relationship to work, and both are equally toxic when you stay in a relationship that are, you know, like we are, you know, this is something you and I had talked about before. I mean, we are toxic as empaths. I will admit we are toxic. There are things that we do. I'm no saint. I'm no angel. Like there were things I did. I ran my mouth. I never hit her. And I will, you know, say that until my dying day. I never hit her, but there were things that I did that, you know, I ran my mouth. I said the nastiest names that if anybody ever said to me, oh my God, I would quiver. But I realize now that, especially as I mentioned before, with the relationships that I have now, I don't necessarily have an anger problem. What I had was a narcissist problem. I had somebody who installed the buttons, knew which ones to push, and I didn't know, you know, I thought they were doing it, trying to work on it, and they were doing it in the name of manipulation.
Yeah, like they brought out the worst in you in a lot of ways.
100%.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so one thing, so fucking like I don't know how long we've been going on, but like we have not gotten through like anything so far, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should get some of my questions. Fuck.
Shoot, man.
Okay, so like if you were like if you were talking to somebody who was trying to understand your situation, right, and they had never been in a relationship with, and let's assume that they don't have any like diagnosable condition themselves or maladaptive defense mechanisms, and they're trying to understand what it's like to be in a relationship with a narcissist, what would you, like an unaware one at least, what would you want them to understand that like the big differences between being with somebody who is unaware, like a normal, just kind of toxic person, than somebody who is pathological and isn't taking steps to heal?
I mean, I think you would probably agree. Somebody with a pathology, such as a personality disorder, that's going to be a rocky road. What I would tell to my community is I would probably say, you know, there's a difference between isolated incidents and patterns. So for me, like, especially in the relationships that I have now, it's like, I pay attention to people's motives, and I pay attention to, you know, how they act, and I look for empathy. And so what happens is that if somebody does something, say, I don't like, right, there's a difference between an isolated incident and a pattern. So, you know, if somebody has a pathology where they're continuously, I don't want to say I'm narcissist proof now, but like I'm looking for patterns, right? Like, so I'm sitting there and I'm saying, like, if you're going to keep coming at me and there's zero reciprocation, that's a big deal for me now, is reciprocation. Like there's, you know, like this is why we believe that relationships are hard, because it's a two-way street. It's a give and take. And for me, you know, this kind of might sound narcissistic, but if I'm not getting anything out of this, if I'm just pouring into a cup with holes at the bottom, I'm not going to continue giving. Like I can't have, I'm so worried that I will have learned nothing from these last 10 years that I can never do that to myself again. I can't imagine it. I don't know. I hope
you're saying you would never date a narcissist again? That's crazy.
I mean, shit, this is a PSA for anybody, but please, for the love of God, if you ever, I don't care if it's a narcissist or not, please get a prenup. And I don't care. I don't care if people are sitting there going, well, he makes more money than I do, or she makes more money than I do. Walk out of it what you walk into it with. Please get a prenup, especially with a narcissist, for the love of God.
I have gotten to like such a visceral arguments with people about prenups, because they'd be like, well, if you want a prenup, then like you're basically marrying to divorce. I'm like, okay, but what if we do get a divorce?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, we're going off on a different tangent now. But
yeah, that's a whole other. Yeah,
I mean, it's funny. I work with a bunch of guys who are young guys, and some of them are getting engaged and stuff. I'm like, did you get a prenup? They're like, no. I'm like, idiot.
That's what I'm about to be in another wedding. That's what on the night of his wedding. That's what I'm going to ask him. Just freak him out the night before.
There's
As
statistics
bachelor party, bro. Did you get a prenup?
Yeah. Oh God, I'm sure they would love that coming from you.
Yeah, right. Oh fuck. Okay. So next thing I want to bring up. Right. If there's somebody who just got out of who is like just starting kind of their healing journey out of being with somebody who was an unaware cluster B and like they're trying to heal and stuff like that, what would be your like first steps in how they can heal, or like any advice to them that you think they should hear?
Yeah, I love that question, Jacob. I absolutely love that question because it's something that's really prominent with my audience lately. And I see posts on like my content and stuff, and people are like, you know, like, how do I recoup? Somebody asked me today, how do I recoup? And this might sound a little hokey, but it worked for me. So, you know, I'm just going to throw it out there. Is like, to me, small victories are like the biggest thing you can hope for. So I have a lot of listeners, you know, of my podcast who go like, I can't even get out of bed. I literally cry around the clock. I mourn the fact that I'm not going to have this long life relationship with the person that I loved, even if they didn't love me back. Right. And to me, the biggest thing for me is small victories. And when I got out, of course, I took my time to grieve. I was catatonic on the floor. I was throwing up. I couldn't speak. It was disgusting. It was awful to watch. And so eventually what I did is I found that small victories such as, right, like I'm a big foodie and it was great. You know, you and I met in New York City and we got to hang out for a little bit. And we went out for some pizza and stuff like that.
But fucking awesome.
It was great, right? But like my thing is like I'm a big foodie. So like if you can't get out of bed, right? What's your favorite food? And this is a rhetorical question for the listeners out there, but order your favorite food, right? Everybody likes music. Music is the universal language. Order a pizza, play your favorite album, and cater to yourself in lieu of what all those things that you miss with your narcissist. And then get up, get out, take a walk, and get some sunshine. And I know this sounds super fucking hokey. I know it does. But like, where are you going to start when you can't get out of your bed? Right? Like, where are you supposed to start? Because I've been there. You know, when I was thrown out of my home, I had to live with my father for the better part of like 5 or 6 months. And that was awful, living with my 65-year-old father. But like, you know, he would find me face down on the floor, just weeping how much I miss my kids. And I would get up and I would walk 12 miles a day. I ended up losing like 30 pounds because like I was just determined to get out there and heal. You know what I mean? Like, you can't heal in your bed with the windows drawn and just reliving all the moments that didn't work out. Cater to yourself, take small victories, and just build on them. You know, like, I know, like, you know, I've had listeners who go, I can't imagine kissing another guy, or I can't imagine kissing another girl for, you know, the rest of my life. But you know, like, don't worry about that right now. Like, just take those small things that you like and kind of date yourself in a way. Like, I used to date myself. I used to take myself around New York City and bounce from pizza spot to pizza spot, or watch my favorite TV show, or, you know, helping people. I know it sounds hokey, man, but to me, helping people, man, connecting with other people, because I couldn't have imagined there were so many people out there who feel like me. So yeah, I mean, there's whatever it is that you feel good about, cater to yourself and start building on the rest of your life. You're at ground zero and you have to build from there.
Good shit. And like, what I love about that too is that like, I feel like that's advice that could apply to like a lot of situations as well, in terms of like, just like healing and growing from like anything when you're in a shitty spot like that. You lost your job. Well, there's advice there for you too. Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, I say too, like, I have listeners who turn to drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And I'm not judging anybody, but yeah, dude, like, it's hard. Listen, I'm not telling you it's not hard. I am telling you that, you know, you got to give it time. It is hard, but you know, if you want like immediate satisfaction, like, try and boost that serotonin that's so low, that dopamine that's so low in your brain. And like, food, music, sunshine, exercise, those are some of the things that work for me.
Oh yeah, I fucking bet. I'll say, like, I used to frown on that idea. It's like, oh, just like going on a walk. I'm like, what the fuck do you know? That's stupid as hell. But I will say, going on walks nowadays is probably one of the highlights of my days that I'm not seeing anybody else and shit.
Yeah, totally.
Like, honestly.
Yeah, totally. You know, like call a friend if you can, call a friend, call some family. But like to me, like I gotta tell you, like there was so many times when I'd be like walking up a hill in the beautiful sunshine and I'd have like Slipknot in my ears, like rah, 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 rah. And I'm like, this is like encompassing of like everything in my life right now. I'm angry, I'm healing, I'm sad, I'm walking, I'm trying, like all this.
You have like a spiritual moment to Slipknot.
Yes, bro. Fucking Slipknot spiritual as fuck.
Oh, oh, it's fucking funny. Okay, this is one that I'm very excited to hear what your take on this is. So like as you know, I have a decent portion of my subscribers and viewers that are self-aware narcissists, and they are like, a lot of them probably, if they are trying to be in a healthy relationship, and probably some are doing better than the worst. I don't know exactly, but obviously once you're a narcissist who is self-aware and you're healing, we're social creatures. We're going to be trying to have genuine human connections again. What kind of advice would you have for a self-aware narcissist? Like, what do they need to understand about normal, in quotes, people, and how to get along with them better, and like some things that maybe they'll miss about the relationship because of just how their head's wired differently?
You know, that's a really good question. And I know you guys can't see me right now, but I'm staring at the ceiling. I mean, for whether you're aware or not, right? You guys, I've heard from you, I've heard from Tess, I've heard from, you know, self-aware narcissists specifically, that you guys do want to be loved and you do want to be admired. And with somebody like me, for example, you know, like I truly, adamantly loved my Nex. I loved her. In spite of everything, I loved her. So what do I want you guys to know is that if you guys truly do want love, we do love you and we do admire you. And if that's the ultimate goal that you're looking for, you have it. And it angers us in our community to see you go, yeah, but like, what more can I get? Or like, what more can I, you know, how far can I stretch this? You have us in the palm of your hands. And I think you know that. And if you want us, you have us. So I just wish we could all just put the battle axes down and stop fighting about it. But, you know, if you want love, you got it. You know, that's what I want you to know.
I think that highlights, and I think that's actually something that all narcissists need to hear, because it's like, I think that highlights one of like the biggest issues that at least I face in my relationships, is that, and like I'll just quote one of my exes, where when I talked to her after our breakup, and she told me that like she gave me all the love that she could and I could never trust it, which looking back, yeah, she was fucking right.
And how do you, well, so like here, this turns into the podcaster and me, but like, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like you missed a opportunity? Do you feel like it's like the one that got away? What do you think?
I wouldn't say she's the one that got away, but it does make me feel, it does give me a lot of like, fucking Alexify me. I don't know what I'm feeling most of the time. It makes me feel weird though. It's
Sure.
like it makes me feel like, it makes me feel sad in some way, like knowing that like knowing how lost I was, especially being like, wow, like, and that it's still affecting me to this day, is that like, there are people who care about me and I still push them away, and I like, don't even see myself doing it.
Yeah. But like, not to put words in your mouth, right? But like, so then the other half of that is probably, you probably feel pretty good that you can move on and you're still desirable by somebody else. You know, like, look at people who chase me, right? Like,
yeah, no, there is that factor is definitely there for sure.
Yeah,
especially if I heard that statement, well, not if I heard that statement particularly, but if, let's say that I heard that just one of my, like, hearing that in itself doesn't really give me that satisfaction, it doesn't really come to mind. But if that was like compounded with like something like, she's like, I haven't been able to get over you like since we broke up, and that was like years ago.
Yeah,
that would be a self-esteem boosting thing right there. Like, I will not
self-esteem juice, man. I remember your quote, self-esteem juice. I totally get it. Yep, I understand.
But yeah, no. So yeah, I think that, and so yeah, I do like that though, just because it's like, okay, yeah, this is the thing that does need to be like drilled in to a lot of narcissist heads, is like,
we love you. We love you. Legitimately, we love you. If you want love, you got love. And like, I'm not going to sit here and like tell you how to handle it, but it's more so just like, I don't know, like, can you rectify that it's worth it? Like, can you logically approach that this is worth working on? And like, you know, I don't know, don't set fire to us to find love. You know what I mean? Like, my ex used to say that to me all the time. Oh, you know, you tell me you love me, but you know, you say all these nasty things to me. It's like, cause I'm so fucking fed up. Like, it's weird. It's a weird circle. And anybody who's listening to this, you're probably listening to this for a reason and you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, yeah. Okay. So this one I think this one's going to be a very interesting one as well. Okay. So I kind of talk out about how I do think that there are some toxic aspects to communities that have to do with narcissism and cluster B. Like on my side of things, usually I point out the fact of like, oh, like there's some people that want to say that it's stigmatizing or ableist or whatever to like point out the fact that like when you're not aware and you have personality disorder, you're probably gonna be hurting people like that. Like, I'm not saying all of them do, but like I would say like probably over 50%. And that's like part of the disorder. And I think that taking accountability is an important step in our healing. So I want to hear from the other, so that's just an example, but I want to hear on the other side of things in like narcissistic abuse communities, if you think that there's aspects of those communities that are toxic and that should probably be worked on.
So personally speaking, I would say the most toxic thing about my community would be that we are gluttons for punishment. And then, you know, when you're like a self-aware to narcissism, I guess, you sit there and like, you kind of dissect and analyze your other relationships. And one of the most toxic things that I see in my community, and I know everybody gets there in their own time, but I get frustrated when it's like, you know what's being done to you, but you're allowing it to happen, right? Like, you know that you escaped maybe your romantic or whatever relationship you had that was toxic, and you're now aware of narcissism, but now you're in another similar situation. And like I said before, like, I can't imagine not having learned anything from this. I personally get frustrated with people when it seems like you went from one bad relationship to another. And like, you know, I would get mad at myself had I learned nothing from this, but I do get mad at other people who I think, you know, come on. But like, I also compare almost to an addict, right? Like a drug addict or an alcoholic. It's like, you know, and you can't stop. And I think that's equally as toxic, you know, with your community and my community. That is a toxic thing that we do, is that you're a self-aware empath, for lack of a better term, quote unquote, and you're still doing it. You're still doing it. Come on. You know, like, you're out here, you're a self-aware narcissist and you're trying to work on it. Like, what about the self-aware empaths who's not?
Yeah, true. Why do you think, like, what do you think it is about it that like make them addicted, quote unquote, to the fact that they are still willing to engage in these toxic relationships, even recognizing that their last relationship was toxic?
Probably because there's a void, you know, like similar to me, right? Like, so thank God I did get married. I did have kids. I did have that experience. But I think some of the people in my community perhaps are still trying to fill a void of whatever their motive is for love or whatever they desire. They haven't had it yet. So like, if they didn't get it from their, you know, like, let's just say hypothetically, like,
I mean, honestly, well, because like I had a really good thought there. God damn it, I lost it. I can tell my ADHD meds are wearing off. No, because but yeah, because I do think something that is this is something that I noticed in some of those communities, that like I tend to have kind of I don't feel that strongly about it, just because like I don't really have that huge of an investment in those communities. But what I do notice is that like, oh, you get out of these relationships, and because of kind of the narrative around a narcissistic relationship, they can write off that entire relationship being as like the fault of the abuser, which, you know, in fairness, yes, like a lot of that does land them, but then it's like, then they don't ask themselves, why did I get into that relationship? What do I need to work on myself so that I don't stay in a relationship like that again?
Going back to it, we're not perfect, right? Like, you got to fix something. You got to fix something or nothing changes. Yep.
Because I mean, it always, as no matter how bad a relationship it is, it takes two to tango, unless you're like kidnapped, then that doesn't apply.
It doesn't always, well, hold on though. Hold on. You know, like,
where are you going with this, buddy?
You triggered something in me. It doesn't always take two to tango. And the reason I'll tell you why, because, you know, like, I made a post on Instagram recently. It doesn't always take two to tango. And the reason I'll tell you that is because the man who beats the woman and gives her a black eye, I don't care what she did. I don't care what she said. I don't care. That does not need to happen. So it doesn't necessarily always take two to tango. It's subjective and there are reasons behind it. But now I've heard some gruesome stories that people did not deserve, and I don't care what,
So two things. One, when you like disagreed there for a second, I thought you were talking about like unless you're kidnapped or something, and I was like, no. What did the kidnapping do?
No, kidnapping is perfectly fine, Jacob. Come on, we're on the same.
I was like, whoa, okay, no, okay, but yeah. No, and but yeah, take two to tango is kind of not the right wording that I really intended to use. But yeah, because there are situations like that where it's like you get basically fucking Stockholm syndrome by being with somebody who's beating you, or coercive control.
1,000%. Like yeah, we will all admit we had Stockholm syndrome. 1,000%.
Right. So there's situations like that, but it is also. But then I feel like that's more not an out. I would say that's like less common than the majority of people, where it's kind of like, I was in a toxic relationship and I was allowing myself be in that toxicity because of some need I didn't get met during childhood and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you have to analyze that. So, you have to analyze that, and everybody will say, turn that love.
Yes, I can. Okay. That was terrifying. It was just you repeating the same word over and over again. I was like, what is happening?
All right, cool. I unplugged my mic and plugged it back in.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Anyways, what were we talking about?
We were talking about like the two to tango thing, and like how I think one of the last things I just said was like, take the love that you are seeking outward and turn it inward.
Okay, got you. Yes. And I think that's it. I think that's something that like everybody needs to hear in these situations. My gosh.
It sounds hokey, man. I get how hokey it sounds. I get it. It sounds crazy. It sounds lame, but no, I get it.
Well, because from my perspective, it's like, it's so weird because I have to have like double think half the time, because on one hand, I'm not far enough in my healing that I can like apply that to myself 100%. Like I still fucking hate myself. But on the other hand, I know that in the end, should be what I am working towards and stuff like that, even though it sounds fucking,
it's not even like loving yourself, because even like that could be debatably sound narcissistic, but it's just like being comfortable in your own skin and knowing that like, no matter what, like you have you. And if you don't have whoever you're seeking that validation from, you still always have you. So like, that's like why they say like, you can't love yourself until you can't love somebody else until you love yourself, because you need to know that if that relationship doesn't work out, you'll still be good with you.
I feel, and like, that's healthy narcissism right there. Like a healthy sense of self-love, right?
Wow. What a
confidence.
What a, I don't know, what a notion, healthy narcissism.
It sounds like, when you're talking about it in the pathological sense so much, it sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it?
It does, but I love it. No, I love it. I get it.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so here's one that I'm very curious about. This one, if you like, let's say you could do all of this all over again, everything you experienced with your ex and stuff, what would you do differently? Would you try to change the outcome?
Try and change the outcome. Well, again, so the reason that I did what I did is because I wanted that white picket fence idea. So would I change anything about it? Yeah, I mean, it'd be easy for me to sit here and say like, I just wouldn't have gotten to the relationship, but I probably still would have. I think I would have paid more attention to the red flags. I would have paid attention to the people around me who are like, dude, like that's not healthy. Like what she's doing is not healthy, Mac. And you kind of need to like think about that and look into it. And I was just like, no, it's, love is pain. And, there's a great, I think I said it to you when you and I met in New York City, like I'm a big music guy, and there's an Offspring line and he goes, the more you suffer, the more it shows who really cares. Right. And like, that's like the most toxic thought process. But like, I relate to that line so much because it's like, yeah. So to answer your question, I wouldn't have not gotten into the relationship, but I would have paid more attention. I'm mad at myself for not leaving when I wanted to.
Interesting. Okay. And basically you just have some more like, I guess you would have some actual boundaries, right?
Yeah. And you know what it was is like not having those boundaries turned me into a person that I didn't want to be. You know what I mean? Like, because no one now would say that, Mac is angry or anything like that. Like, I admit that sometimes my mouth still goes on and I'm still pretty unfiltered and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like I I would not have forced myself through those red flags because I suffered immeasurably and I turned into a person that I don't want to be. And now I'm working on the person that I do want to be.
Good shit. Good shit. I love that. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here quickly, not
That's
quickly,
cool.
but like in a sec. But there's one more thing I want to talk that I mentioned this to you very briefly because I think it's an interesting talking point because like I talk a lot about because like how and like I want to preface this with saying that like a lot of how I can relate to you is when I think about my sister who has BPD and probably has ASPD. She was diagnosed with conduct disorder, which turns into ASPD, but she wasn't in treatment when she turned 18. So like it's a whole thing. So like I kind of know what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody who is unaware, pathological, and hurts you a lot, even though it may not be like nefarious, right?
Okay, fair.
And a big part of my healing in that was like learning was first of all basically being like, okay, she wasn't evil, she's just real fucking sick. And then eventually learn to kind of forgive the fact that all that happened, even though it affected me really bad. But we talked about this a little bit, is that you don't share that belief, which is, fine and stuff, but everybody has their own route in healing. And I kind of want to touch on that a little bit and see what your opinion on the idea of forgiving somebody who hurt you, who is in one of these relationships is.
Well, I'm not there yet. I will say I'm not there yet.
And you might never be, and that's fine.
I might never be, right? And like, so it's funny. I remember you telling me that when you and I did my podcast and we had that conversation, you were talking about your sister and stuff like that. And I remember saying to you, and I remember saying, that's empathy. And you're like, is it? And I'm like, yeah, dude, that's empathy. And you were like, kind of like shocked to hear that. And like, but no, like, cause we can find that common ground there. But when it comes to forgiveness, you and I were just talking offline before we started this. And I saw this funny Instagram reel or TikTok or whatever it was. And to quote a famous philosopher, and you guys might have heard of her. Her name is Taylor Swift, but she said, you don't need forgiveness.
May have heard of her.
You don't need forgiveness to move on. Like, and I fucking hate Taylor Swift, but like, she had this like pretty poignant post about like, she did some interview and she was like, you can just be like, I'll let it kind of go and move on with my life, but like, I don't want you in my life. And like, I don't think in my personal opinion, forgiveness is not a prerequisite to healing. It's more about acknowledging the hurt, acknowledging what happened and moving on and kind of closing that door on that chapter of your life and not allowing it to percolate back up. So no, I don't believe in forgiveness. Fuck it. And there's gonna be people out there who are gonna be like, oh well, Romans whatever says you need to forgive. And listen, I do believe in God. I am an agnostic person. I don't know what to call my faith, but like, you can quote the Bible all you want, but like, to me, it's I can't. You know what I mean? Like, I can't wrap my brain around it. And maybe you're listening to this saying I'm sick, but I just, for now, I never say never, but for now it's not in the cards for me. I can't forgive somebody physically, emotionally, financially, sexually abusing me. Oh, and ho-hum, you kidnapped my kids for hundreds of days. And like, I forgive you? No, I hope you rot. Sorry.
Oh, that's fucking funny. And that's the thing is that like, and like, again, like, as I said, everyone has their own way of healing and like, it's not going to look the same for everybody. And maybe you never will be able to forgive, but if you can, but that's the thing that I really, really like is moving on from it and being, because like eventually, because that's what I feel like a lot of people get stuck in kind of this cycle of like kind of obsessing over narcissism due to their trauma and stuff.
Yeah. It's funny. So as you're talking, like, so I see the other side of the coin, right? Like I think of, like narcissism almost, it's maybe a weird analogy, but I also think of it almost like a diabetic, right? Like a diabetic can't produce his own insulin, right? Oh. So like you guys can't produce your own empathy. And like, I'm not mad at you for that. What makes me mad at the narcissist is that it turns sinister towards me. Right. Like, so like when a diabetic has like an insulin deficiency, like they don't get mad, like it doesn't hurt somebody, you know what I mean? Like, so you guys lose cognitive empathy and then it turns malicious towards me. And then that's where I draw the line. But luckily, in my life, I'm, like you just said, moving on is such an important thing. This cannot be the defining chapter of my life. It's going to be one of the biggest things, I mean, I'll be on my deathbed remembering how I overcame all this shit, but like at a certain point, moving on has to be in the cards.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Like, I mean, again, like, because yeah, it's like, how can you how can you heal fully from anything when you're like fixated on it 24/7?
Yeah. And it goes back to taking care of yourself, catering to you. Like I can remember all the times, like, you know, like I mentioned, I'm a big music guy, and like, you know, long story short, I really want to go see Tom Petty, and my neck said I couldn't go see Tom Petty because her brother was having a baby or something. And what if the baby came out at the time of Tom Petty? Well, 2 weeks later, Tom Petty died, and I never got to see Tom Petty. And I was so Tom Petty fucking died, and I never got to see Tom Petty. And the funny thing is like now, like that's the kind of shit. Like if I think like, hey, I want to go to my favorite concert, or I want to go to a restaurant, or I want to go to some event, I'm going to do it. And the best part about it now in my life is like I have like-minded people who want to share those experiences and don't stifle me the way I was for the last 10 years.
Right. Makes a lot of sense to me. That's I'm just like thinking just like that, like that was just like such a plot twist there. I was like, and then he died. I was like, whoa, okay.
Tom Petty fucking died. Yeah, and I love Tom Petty, god damn it.
Oh, it's fucking funny. Okay, so I think that's a decent note to end it on. Would you like to like kind of plug your shit or have any sort of parting words?
Yeah, totally. Thank you. So I'm most active on Instagram. You could follow me at dimming_the_gaslight. I'm also by the same name on TikTok. I'm on Twitter at dimming gaslight. I couldn't fit so it's at dimming gaslight. My podcast, I'm about 70 episodes deep now, and I bring on all different people from yourself and Tess and, you know, Dr. Ruth Harper, who is a clinical psychologist out of the UK who specializes in narcissism. I interview people all over the world, have them tell their stories. I bring in social media influencers, some people that you guys have connected with. And yeah, I'm just trying to bridge that gap. And, you know, down the road, I have some pretty big expansion plans when it comes to like apps and networks and sort of things that I'm working on. I can't necessarily talk about it yet, but I have some pretty big ideas for this coming down the pike, and I'm really excited about it. And I just want to say thank you to you. I want to say, you know, shout out to Tess again. I want to thank you guys for the work that you guys are doing is invaluable to people like us. And if from our side, right, if you can remain open-minded to somebody like Jacob's platform for like what he's doing and what he's trying to accomplish, I think I admire the hell out of you. You know, like this, you really could have the riots with the pitchforks coming after you. I know I'm feeding into the narcissistic ego here, but like you really could have the riots and the pitchforks like coming after you. But instead, like what you're trying to do, I think has a certain amount of nobility for it. And if my next could have just a sliver of the self-awareness that you had, maybe this could have all fucking worked out, but you know, for the better that it didn't.
No, fair enough. I really appreciate you saying all that, and fucking thank you for coming on and shit. Like, honest, again, I have a lot of respect for you just being open to some of the things that I say about, like, you know, being like, hey, not all narcissists are like evil.
Yeah, no, I get it, and you know, I apologize if you didn't agree with some of the things that I said on here, but you know, I'm just speaking my point of view, and you know, I'm
You're speaking your truth.
I have I have a school in hard knocks, you know, like. So I lived it, I went through it, I know what I experienced, and you know, I do the best I can.
Oh, again, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And so everybody, that's it. Take your fucking meds, please.